D. Moore Docs present Wonder Number 27, the complete story of Hannah Montana. How a blonde wig, a double life, and a pop star blueprint created a global phenomenon. Now, black silence. Then a sudden flash of hot pink and neon purple. Guitar amps hum, feedback ringing out just before a heavy upbeat pop rock riff drops. The stage lights flare. Thousands of screaming fans erupt in a roar that shakes the arena. A sparkly curtain rises, and in the center of the stage stands a pop superstar in a shimmering outfit holding a glittering microphone, singing a chorus that an entire generation knew by heart. You get the best of both worlds. For just a second, you're back in 2006. You're sitting on the living room floor after school, clutching a pink Motorola Razr or a purple portable DVD player. The television screen is glowing with the signature Disney Channel magic. You have a ticket stub in your hand, or you desperately wish you did, because getting a ticket to see this tour was harder than getting into a sold out rock concert. Now, if you guys grew up during the mid to late 2000s, there was one television show that didn't just dominate the cultural conversation, it completely defined what a pop star could be. Not because it was realistic, but because it tapped into a secret every kid and teenager carries inside of them, the desire to be someone else. Now, to walk down the halls of your ordinary middle school struggling with algebra, cafeteria food, and awkward crushes, and then with the flip of a single blonde wig step onto a stadium and stage where millions of people are screaming your name, it sounds like a modern fairy tale, if you're asking me. In fact, it was the ultimate high concept sitcom premise. What if pop royalty lived right next door? What if the biggest music star on the planet was actually just an ordinary girl from Malibu trying to keep her secret safe? Long before streaming algorithms, multi platinum brand ecosystems, and overnight TikTok sensations. Disney Channel built a machine, not just a television show. A cultural juggernaut that birthed a multi platinum music career that sold out arenas across the globe. Now launched a cinematic blockbuster and turned a 13-year-old girl into a defining icon of the 21st century pop culture. Let's keep it real right out the gate. When people talk about the golden era of Disney Channel live action sitcoms, the conversation usually starts with, "That's so Raven," maybe The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, sometimes Wizards of Waverly Place. But Hannah Montana accomplished something entirely different. It blurred the line between fiction and reality so completely that fans stopped seeing where Miley Stewart ended and Hannah Montana began. It wasn't just a sitcom with musical numbers, it was a real time social experiment in manufactured identity. It proved that a catchy look, a clever premise, and an unstoppable performer could turn a Disney Channel time slot into the center of entertainment universe. Because every pop star eventually fades, but the ones who capture a generation stay with you forever. And today, we're pulling back the curtain on the blonde wig, the secret dressing room, and the whirlwind rise of a pop culture earthquake. And there is always more to the story. Now, before Miley Cyrus ever stepped onto a soundstage as Miley Stewart, For the theme song became a global anthem before the blonde wig became one of the most recognizable costumes in television history. Disney Channel was developing a new kind of star vehicle. The idea centered on an ordinary teenage girl secretly living as a famous pop singer. During development, the lead character went through several identities of her own. At different stages, she was known as Zoe Stewart, then Chloe Stewart. The names changed, the details evolved, but the central fantasy remained irresistible. What if the most famous teenage singer in the world could remove one disguise, walk into school, and become completely ordinary again? Then came the casting search. More than 1,000 young performers were considered for the role. Among them was an 11-year-old Miley Cyrus. She possessed the voice because her voice is one in a generation. She is one of the greatest vocalists of all time, ever. The comic energy, the confidence, but producers initially believed she was too young. Miley refused to let the answer remain no. She continued sending audition material, continued pursuing the role, and months later, she was called back. By then, the producers could see what the original audition had only suggested. She wasn't simply capable of playing the character, she could redefine her completely. Now, after Miley won the role, Chloe Stewart became Miley Stewart. The fictional girl and young performer playing her began moving toward one another, and soon it would become almost impossible for the public to tell where one ended and the other began. When the series premiered on March 24th, 2006, leading into a special encore presentation of High School Musical, approximately 5.4 million viewers watched. Then the largest audience ever for a Disney Channel original series premiere. Parents tuned in for the family dynamic, kids tuned in for the comedy and the music. The premiere introduced the entire world to the character. The months that followed transformed Miley Cyrus into a star. The blonde wig wasn't just a costume prop, it was the key to an empire. Now we get to welcome Miley. Every iconic television set needs a world that feels both aspirational and comforting. Now, for Hannah Montana, the world was Malibu, California. At first glance, the Stewart household looked like the quintessential sitcom set in a cozy beachside home, a sunlit kitchen where the family meals turned into comedic shouting matches, a backyard patio overlooking the ocean, a staircase where a secret identity could be dramatically rushed up and down. It was bright, warm, and inviting, which was precisely the point because the glamour of the pop star lifestyle had to contrast sharply with the grounded reality of a normal teenager trying to survive eighth grade. At the center of the home was a unique family dynamic. Robbie Ray Stewart, played by real life father Billy Ray Cyrus. Having a real life country music star playing her fictional father added a layer of authentic chemistry that no amount of acting coaching could manufacture. Now, Robbie Ray wasn't just a sitcom dad telling corny dad jokes through, though he had plenty of those, often accompanied by his signature southern drawl and catchphrases. He was a retired country music legend turned full-time manager and single father. He kept Miley grounded whenever the pop star ego threatened to take over. Bobby Ray was there with a guitar, a piece of wisdom, or a gentle reminder of where she came from. Then there was Jackson Stewart, Miley's older brother, played by Jason Earls. Jackson provided the ultimate sibling grounding mechanism, while Miley was dealing with sold out arenas and fashion emergencies. Jackson was dealing with cheap cars, dead end jobs at Rico's surf shop, and the perpetual humiliation of being an older brother who couldn't catch a break or a date. No, he got a couple dates. Hang on, he got a couple dates. Their sibling rivalry was sharp, fast paced, and effortlessly funny. Jackson never cared that his sister was a global icon. To him, she was just the annoying girl who hogged the bathroom and stole his fries. That friction kept the show from ever feeling too sugary. Outside the house set, the school hallways of Seaview High. This was where the secret identity faced its daily trial by fire. Enter Lily Truscott and Oliver Oaken, Lily played by Emily Osmond, while Miley's fiercely loyal best friend who discovered that the Hannah Montana secret in the first episode after sneaking backstage at a concert. Instead of running to the press, Lily became her partner in crime, adopting her own secret alter ego, Lolo LaFontaine. Oliver, played by Mitchell Musso, completed the trio, bringing high energy, goofiness, and underlying loyalty. Together, the trio represented the sacred core of the show, friendship that survives fame, and standing in the on the preparatory of high school social hierarchy was Rico Suave, played by Moises Arias. I did not know his last name was Suave. That is so funny, ain't it? Yeah, but anyways, Rico's surf shop, constantly plotting schemes to get rich, quick, or torture Jackson, who was chaotic, hilarious, and a master of comedic timing. Yet, despite all the chaos, Malibu was left safe. It was a place where double lives could collide in the most absurd ways, like Miley having to sneak out of a parent teacher conference to shoot a music video or trying to attend a school dance while wearing full pop star glam without being recognized. Now, the comedy relied on escalating panic. Every episode was a ticking clock. How long could Miley keep the secret before someone walked through the door? That structured tension transformed an ordinary suburban sitcom into a high stakes comedy of errors. And at the heart of it all was a simple message about home, no matter how many stadiums Hannah Montana sold out. No matter how many flash bulbs went off on the red carpet, at the end of the day, Miley took off the wig, washed off the makeup, and went home to a family that loved her for who she was, not what she sold. Now, it's a beautiful lesson to take if you're living a double life like Hannah Montana. Now, if you're trying to explain the premise of Hannah Montana to an adult who has never seen it, it sounds completely unhinged. An ordinary teenager lives a double life as a global pop star, and the only thing hiding her true identity is a blonde wig, no facial prosthetics, no voice modulation, just bangs and platinum blonde hair. Now, if Miley takes the wig off in front of a room full of reporters, they simply see an awkward teenager. If she puts it back on, she's unrecognizable. On paper, it's a massive logistical plot hole, but in practice, it is one of the most brilliant narrative devices in television history. Why? Because the formula wasn't about the logic of the disguise. Clearly, it was about the psychological tension of living two conflicting lives. Okay, now every episode followed a rhythmic prediction structure rather than fans constantly recognized and cared. But Miley has a normal teenage problem. She forgets to study for a history test. She has a crush on a boy who only likes Hannah Montana. Or she gets into a petty fight with Lily. or who doesn't like Hannah Montana, I should say, Now, simultaneously, a pop star obligation looms, a photo shoot, a concert, an interview with Robin Roberts, or an appearance with Regis Philbin. Miley tries to balance both worlds. Inevitably, the schedules collide. She has to be in two places at once. She devises a elaborate physics defying scheme to sneak out of school, put on the wig, perform a concert, and sneak back into the classroom before the bell rings. And right when disaster is about to strike, when a classmate, a teacher, or a reporter is about to piece the clues together, a miraculous save occurs. A distraction, a power outage, a timely intervention by Robbie Ray or Jackson, and the secret lives to see another day. This structure created a unique viewing experience. The audience was always in on the joke. We weren't wondering if Miley would get caught. We were watching to see how close she would come to disaster. It turned everyday middle school anxieties into high wire acts. Every teenager feels like they are wearing a mask. Every kid worries that if people really knew who they were underneath, they wouldn't fit in. By literalizing that metaphor, turning the mask into a literal blonde wig and a secret into international pop stardom, the show gave voice to a universal adolescent fear. You want to be seen, but you also want to be protected. You want the world to know your name, but you also want to be able to eat a burger at the local diner without someone pointing a camera at you. Furthermore, the show weaponized, I would say, pop culture against itself. Like Hannah Montana parodied the way the very industry Miley Cyrus was rapidly becoming part of. Tabloids, relentless paparazzi, superficial executive, obsessed fans, and media fatigue were all skewered with sharp, self aware humor. The show acknowledged that fame was exhausting, that behind the glittering outfits and proto synthetics was a girl who just wanted to hang out with her friends without worrying about front page news. Now, that self awareness kept the show grounded no matter how ridiculous the pop star antics became. Whether Hannah was riding an elephant onto a stage or getting stuck in a giant foam guitar, the emotional core remained anchored in Miley Stewart's ordinary, messy, beautiful teenage life. Now, let's talk about the sound of a generation because you cannot talk about Hannah Montana without talking about the music. Most television shows with musical tie ins rely on unforgettable filler tracks written by committee to fill out a soundtrack album. Hannah Montana changed the entire Disney music business model. When the show's first soundtrack was released in October 2006, it became the first television soundtrack ever to debut at number one on Billboard 200 and was certified triple platinum. An unprecedented achievement for a television soundtrack featuring a fictional artist. The songs weren't just catchy, they were expertly crafted pop rock anthems written by top tier songwriters like Matthew Jarrett, Robbie Neville, and Cara DioGuardi. Theogardy. Tracks like The Best of Both Worlds, Just Like You, Pumping Up the Party, and If We Were a Movie captured the exact sonic sweet spot of the mid 2000s. They combined electronic, or I should say electric guitar riffs with soaring pop choruses, channeling the energy of Avril Lavigne, Hilary Duff, and Kelly Clarkson. Miley Cyrus possessed a raspy, powerful vocal delivery that gave the Hannah Montana persona an authentic rock star edge. She didn't sound like a computerized pop puppet. She sounded like someone singing her heart out into a hairbrush in her bedroom mirror. By the time Season 2 arrived alongside the sophomore album Hannah Montana 2, Meet Miley Cyrus. The musical phenomenon exploded to astronomical proportions, guys. The double disc album featured Hannah's hits on one side and tracks introducing Miley Cyrus as a solo artist on the other. It included cultural staples like Nobody's Perfect and Rockstar and Make Some Noise and some massive crossover smash, See You Again. The music became a defining soundtrack of millions of childhoods. You couldn't walk through a school hallway, a summer camp, or a birthday party in 2007 without hearing someone belt out the lyrics to Life's what you make it, so let's make it right. And then came the tour. In the fall of 2007, the Best of Both Worlds tour launched across North America. It became one of the most culturally chaotic ticket selling events of the decade. Demand was so fierce that tickets sold out in minutes, crashing ticketing websites and sparking black market scalping scandals that caught the attention of state attorneys general. Now, parents were paying thousands of dollars on eBay just to get their kids into the arena. Miley Cyrus wasn't merely a television performer anymore. She had become a genuine arena headliner. The tour was subsequently captured in 3D concert film Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus Best of Both Worlds concert in early 2008, which shattered box office records for weekend gross concert film grosses. The music did something vital for the character and the actress. It gave them both legitimacy. Critics who initially dismissed the show as a manufactured Disney gimmick had to concede that the songwriting was genuinely introspective and the vocal was absolutely incredible. The songs gave voice to the emotional highs and lows of growing up. They weren't just about fame, they were about confidence, friendship, heartbreak, and resilience. Long after the television series ended, those melodies remained imprinted on the cultural DNA of a generation. Whenever those opening guitar chords of the Best of Both Worlds dropped today, an entire room of adults who grew up in the 2000s instantly transformed back into kids screaming the lyrics at the top of their lungs. That is the power of a great pop song. It truly, truly freezes time. Now, some television shows achieve high ratings and some become pop culture touchstones, and very few completely redefine the retail media and licensing landscape of a multinational corporation. Hannah Montana didn't just cross that line, it sprinted past it. By 2007 and 2008, the franchise was an unstoppable commercial juggernaut. You couldn't walk into a Target, Walmart, or Toys R Us without being greeted by a wall of Hannah Montana merchandise. It wasn't just standard DVDs and t-shirts, it was an empire of consumer goods. Hannah Montana blonde wigs were flying off the shelves as the ultimate Halloween costume. There were board games, betting sets, Barbie dolls, guitars, microphones, lunchboxes, alarms, class cosmetics, and video games for the Nintendo DS and Wii. It fused television, recorded music, touring film, and consumer culture on a scale few entertainment franchises had ever achieved, and none could replicate in quite the same way. International markets embraced the show with equal fervor. Dubbed in dozens of languages across Europe, Latin America, and Asia, the concept of a secret pop star resonated across cultural borders. Kids in Tokyo, London, Buenos Aires, and Sydney understood the fundamental dream. What if my ordinary life is hiding something extraordinary? Yet with global phenomenon status came a heavy shadow. The line between Miley Cyrus the person and Hannah Montana the character began to blur in the public eye with intense microscopic scrutiny. Every outfit she wore, every interview she gave, every little friend she hung out with was analyzed by tabloid media hungry for the next child star meltdown. Now, the pressure on a teenager living under a constant glare of global spotlight was immense, I should say. The show that celebrated escaping the goldfish bowl of fame was in reality trapping its star inside a glass house of unpredicted magnitude. Despite the personal pressures mourning behind the scenes, the television machine marched forward. The ratings remained stratospheric. The cultural footprint expanded. By the time the franchise reached its peak in 2009, it was ready to make the leap from the living room television screen to the silver screen. Yeah, buddy. In the spring of 2009, Hannah Montana, the movie, hit theaters, serving as a pivotal crossroads for the entire franchise. Up until this point, the show had operated within the comfortable, controlled constraints of television production lots and sound stages. The film took the premise and transplanted it into the wide open spaces of Crowley Corners, Tennessee. The plot was simple yet emotionally heavy. Miley's pop star ego is beginning to overshadow her normal life. After getting into a public fistfight with Tyra Banks at a shoe store over a pair of designer boots, Miley's public image is taking a hit. Frustrated by her out of control celebrity lifestyle, Robbie Ray packs her bag, strips away the private jet, and takes her back home to Tennessee for a reality check. Away from the constant performances, away from the endless flashing cameras, there was mud farms, work, family history, and a handsome childhood friend played by Lucas Till. The film allowed the franchise to explore its own mythology with cinematic scope. It featured sweeping cinematography, high budget musical numbers like Hold Down, Throw Down, and The Climb, and a heartfelt exploration of what it means to remember where you came from. The Climb, in particular, became an anthem of reverence, perseverance. Written by Jesse Alexander and John Mabe, it wasn't a bubblegum pop track, it was an acoustic driven power ballad about facing struggles, falling down, and keeping your eyes on the ultimate goal. It resonated far beyond the target demographic, becoming a universal song of resilience. When the movie reaches its emotional climax, Miley stops the concert. She looks into the crowd and, for the first time in a long time, she decides, oh no, this is the first time, she decides the performance cannot continue without the truth. She removes the blonde wig, the music stops, and Miley Stewart reveals herself to the people in Crowley Corner. For one suspended moment, the entire premise of the franchise appears to collapse. There is no Hannah Montana standing before them, only Miley, a girl exhausted from dividing herself into two people, but the crowd does something unexpected. They do not reject her, they do not rush to expose her, they ask her to continue. Not because the lie meant nothing, but because they understand why she needed it. You dig? Now, they promised to protect her secret. Even the reporter who has pursued the truth throughout the film ultimately chooses not to publish it. Then Miley places the wig back on. Hannah returns to the stage. And the concert continues. The secret survives, but Miley's relationship with it has changed. For the first time, she has been seen completely and still accepted. That is why the movie represents a turning point. It does not end the double life, but it reveals how emotionally unsustainable that double life is becoming. Truly, it truly is. Now, let's talk more about it. Now, every dual life eventually demands a final reckoning. For 4 seasons, Hannah Montana toyed with the tension of the secret. By the time the series entered its fourth and final season, renamed Hannah Montana Forever in 2010, the weight of that secret had become too heavy to sustain. The sets had shifted. The Stewart family left the familiar Malibu beach house behind and moved into a nearby ranch, giving the final season a larger, more transitional setting that reflected how much their lives had changed. In the emotional heart of the season, during an appearance on Jay Leno's talk show, Miley takes the boldest step possible. She removes the blonde wig on live national television. The secret is gone. The world knows the truth, and the immediate aftermath isn't the disaster everyone feared, but a complex, breathing reality. Reporters swarm, paparazzi crowd the gates. Miley's future at school in music and in life suddenly stripped of its protective disguise. She is no longer hiding behind a fictional persona. She has to stand entirely as herself. That public revelation paved the way for the series finale, appropriately titled Wherever I Go, which aired January 16th, 2011. And fittingly, the final decision was no longer about protecting the wig. The world already knew the truth. The final decision was about what Miley wanted her life to become. She receives an extraordinary opportunity, a major movie role filming in Paris. It is the kind of offer you almost no young performer could refuse. But accepting it would mean breaking the promise she made to Lily. Now, for years, the two girls had survived school together. They survived even fame together, heartbreak together, the secret together. And they had just planned to attend college together. At first, Miley chooses Paris. Then she invites Lily to come with her to Paris. But at the airport, Lily realizes that Paris is Miley's dream. College is hers. For perhaps the first time, the two best friends prepare to walk towards different futures. Miley leaves, Lily begins college alone. And it appears the series will end by accepting a difficult truth. Sometimes growing up means loving someone enough to let your path separate. Then there's a knock at Lily's dorm room door. She opens it. Miley is standing there, not Hannah Montana, not an international celebrity arriving beneath flashing cameras. Just Miley, her new roommate. She has turned down the movie because there will be other concerts, other tours, other films, but only one opportunity to attend college with her best friend. That was the final victory of Hannah Montana. Not fame, not secrecy, not the blonde wig. Friendship. The series began with Miley trying to protect both sides of her life. It ended with her finally understanding which parts of that life could never be replaced. As Miley and Lily embrace, the camera pulls away. What else happened? Then memories from our season fill the screen, and I'll always remember you carries the series into its final credits. The wig had already come off, the secret had already been revealed, but the girl underneath still had one more choice to make. For once, she did not choose the biggest stage. She chose the friendship that had always made both worlds feel like home. Now, When the final credits rolled in 2011, when the blonde wig was placed in a vault and the studio lights went dark, what did Hannah Montana leave behind? It left behind a masterclass in modern pop culture engineering. In an era before streaming algorithms dictated every pop culture trend, Hannah Montana proved that television could serve as the ultimate incubator for global superstardom. It transformed television, recording music, live touring, film, and consumer culture into one interconnected pop star universe and established a blueprint few entertainment franchises could ever reproduce with the same scale, timing, or impact. More than that, it left behind an emotional legacy. For millions of kids growing up in the mid to late 2000s, the show was a weekly ritual. It taught a generation that you don't have to choose just one version of yourself. You can be extraordinary and ordinary. You can be ordinary and extraordinary, I should say. You can struggle with math homework and still dream about conquering the world. You can make mistakes, lose your footing, and climb right back up. The franchise weathered immense cultural shifts. It survived the transition from physical retail to digital streaming, and 20 years after the first episode premiered, Miley Cyrus returned to the world that introduced her. In 2026, Disney marked the 20th anniversary of Hannah Montana with a special celebration that revisited the original sets, costumes, memories, and cultural phenomenon surrounding the series. 2 decades later, the living room was rebuilt. The closet doors opened again, and the performer who had spent years establishing herself beyond Hannah Montana willingly returned to honor the character who changed her life. Not to disappear beneath the wig again, but to finally look back at it in her own terms. It birthed the pop icon who would go on to reinvent the boundaries of modern music, winning Grammy Awards and cementing her status as a legendary artist in her own right. And yet, no matter how many musical eras Miley Cyrus cycles through, no matter how many sonic reinventions she undertakes, the shadow of that blonde wig remains because every generation eventually finds its own pop anthem, its own television sanctuary, its own reminder that life is what you make it, so let's make it rock. Hannah Montana was never really about whether a blonde wig could fool the world. It was about whether one girl could carry two identities without eventually losing herself. The series ended, the cultural impact didn't. Because somewhere out there in the pop culture universe, the guitar intro is still playing, the crowd is still screaming, and the blonde wig is still shining under the hot lights. Headlines fade, culture lasts, and remember, there is always more to the story.